I'm delighted to be here today to share some of my thoughts with you of living your best life, embracing your bonus years as a time to grow, learn, and evolve. It's a pleasure to be part of the Healthful Aging Through Lifelong Learning conference sponsored by Second Life. I'm Dorian Mintzer, also known as Sage in Second Life, since I facilitate a wisdom circle there. My goal is to do a quick overview of some of the changing paradigm of aging, changing landscape of retirement puzzle for individuals and couples, important conversations, tips for effective communication, and tips for creating an individual and shared vision. And then there will be time for a Q&A with those of you who are listening. Midlife today is different from how it was in our parents' generation. Midlife today is now like reaching the top of a mountain, only to find, as this picture shows, a huge plateau, an expanse of unknown territory with a lot of ups and downs, which have to do with the unknowns, the vicissitudes of life as we get older. Previously, midlife and beyond was thought of as sort of all downhill. People used to say it's all downhill after 60. It's not that way anymore unless you choose to make it so. These are often called the bonus years because they're the years that now we expect rather than just the exception. Retirement is a funny word, and maybe it should be retired. It used to be more of a destination. Now it's a journey. Transition, not a destination. Many people work in retirement. People use the retirement years, the early years, the later years in different ways. It's helpful to think about it as a journey. But it's part of change, and change can be scary, daunting, and exciting, but also a time for new possibilities and new opportunities. I like to use the framework of a psychologist in Rhode Island, James Prochaska. He talks about 5 stages of change. Pre-contemplation, when you're just thinking about it. It's bubbling around in your head. Contemplation, when you're actually thinking about it. Preparation, when you're preparing for it. Then action and maintenance. I find it helpful because people often berate themselves and say, how come I can't just do whatever the thing is they can't do? It's helpful to think about this. It's not linear, and you might have to go back and forth, but the obstacles could be not thinking about it enough, not preparing enough. So be aware of that. Transition is the actual process we go through, and all transitions have an ending, an unknown, like the messy middle, it's often called, and a new beginning. This next stage of life, like all other transitions, have this. Take a moment to just think about how have you handled transitions in the past? Do you have more trouble with the ending, the unknown, the new beginning, none of it, all of it? It's helpful because it may help inform you how you're going to be dealing with this transition to this next stage of life. And all transitions you need to let go of. There's some ending, so there could be some grieving in order to make space for something new. There are shifts that occur in midlife that I like to mention. Shifts in how we look, our physical appearance. I can look in the mirror and say, my gosh, who am I? Who are you? Who are we if we're in a relationship? We may look different on the outside, but we're still the same person on the inside, but maybe with some shifts because of the various things we've had to deal with in life. Appreciate those shifts. Appreciate your resilience. Our definition of success also begins to change. I don't know that we're ever totally free of how the world or other people in the world evaluate us, but there's a shift much more to your own center so that you can trust your intuition of when you know you've done a good job or haven't, and are a little less, open to just the evaluation of other people. There often is a shift to spirituality. Now, spirituality or it could have been institutional religion may have been part of you throughout your life, may not have been, and there may be shifts in it. But it's not unusual as we get older that we're trying to think kind of what's it all about and trying to find ways to make sense of it. And often people do turn inward a little bit more to our soul in order to figure out how we're part of this larger scheme of life and, how to make sense of it so that we're able to manage through, the various things that we have to deal with. There actually have been some studies in terms of how people have responded to COVID that older people have done better because of having dealt with ups and downs of life before. Not necessarily the oldest of old who were much more vulnerable. And we've seen too many deaths that unfortunately in nursing homes or other group situations that end up being sort of like Petri dishes. Well-being is another important concept, I think, is for all of you to think about. I'm very influenced by positive psychology, and the three kind of legs of well-being are connection, engagement, and purpose and meaning. And also meaningful relationships, sense of community, a sense of agency or achievement that we're able to make a difference, that we matter, basically. And if you think about it, we get this from work. We have connection, engagement, purpose, and meaning, and we get it also from active parenting. So, once there's an empty nest, or if we're not working or not working in the same way, it becomes important to think about how are you going to build this into your life. And I think for many of you who are part of Second Life offers some of that. And there are a lot of opportunities in what's often called either real life or first life. But do keep in mind that well-being is essential. And we may have to create our own structure if we no longer have the structure of work or parenting that kind of grounds us. Without trying to build that into your life, there is a dark side. Loneliness, depression, overusing drugs, alcohol, much more during these last 3 years also, but it's been a constant growing problem. And I think it's important to recognize that connection, engagement, and purpose and meaning really helps and can prolong one's life. Research says that by the time we're 65, it's 30% genes and 70% things we can have some control over, like exercising our body and our brain, healthy eating, nutrition, spirituality, this connection, engagement, and purpose and meaning, friendships. Can't control everything, but do keep in mind that there are things that we can control. Attitude matters. People can live with chronic illnesses, with terminal illnesses, and if you have a positive sense about yourself, maybe dreams have to be shifted, but there are ways that you can keep on learning, growing, and evolving and living your best life. I love this poem from Mary Oliver from The Summer Day. Tell me, what is it that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? I want to suggest that you have an opportunity to create it, to design it, and not just take on the definitions that people have around you. Unfortunately, ageism is alive and well in our country and around the globe. And there is what's called internalized ageism, where we begin to believe some of these myths about aging. And in a sense, we really fight against our future selves. We all age differently. And no matter how well we take care of ourselves, at some point, we all will die. But it's a matter of how we use the years, how we keep learning, how we keep growing, that I think is important. So be conscious and intentional of thinking about your life. Again, learn, grow, evolve. Plant a seed. It can be literally a garden if you want, or if you have an idea, something maybe you had put on the back burner before, something you want to do, something you want to learn. Allow yourself. Now is the time. Many people say that age 70 onward is the happiest time of life. There's actually a U-shaped curve of happiness where we're happiest sort of as babies and infants, and then again in older age. And in between, there's a lot of angst and growing, learning, earning. There's a freedom that comes with growing, learning, and evolving as we get older. So it's important to embrace it. I like the frame also of puzzle. It's a noun and a verb. There are a lot of different puzzle pieces in life. It's not going to fit together like, a jigsaw puzzle because they're different sizes and shapes, but there are these different parts that we need to then puzzle out. That's the verb part. We need to think about it for ourselves and with whoever else is important in our life. And there are important conversations that we need to have with a partner, spouse, adult children, others, friends, relatives, very important conversations. Some of the conversations to puzzle out for yourself and with others have to do with finances, expectations of yourself and other people, how roles and identity have changed. If you're in a relationship or with friends, time together and time apart, sexuality and intimacy, relationship and obligations with family and friends, spirituality, purpose and meaning, health and wellness, how and where to live, social life and community, and also very important end-of-life issues. How do you define quality of life? What's important to you? And have you, put everything in writing? Do you have your wills, your healthcare proxy, power of attorney? Do people know your passwords, where things are? It's actually liberating and an act of love to have those things there so that when you're no longer here at the time of crisis, people don't have to have a crisis on top of another crisis. And legacy. How do you want to be remembered? Many of us think about living our legacy now as we're living, and also perhaps some other aspects of your legacy that you want to focus on. This all helps you live your best life. You may want to write memoirs, stories. You may want to do videos. You may want to put pictures together. It's up to you. There's no right way, but the more you're conscious and intentional, the more in control you are of how you're living this exciting time of your life. As I said, these puzzle pieces aren't going to fit together perfectly, but I think finance and health are the two biggest ones that impact a lot of other lifestyle choices. And then relationships and spirituality, are really important too. No matter how much or how little you have, it's helpful to talk with a financial advisor, not just about the amount of money, but how you want money to work for you. Money is a tool to help you have lifestyle options. And it's good to have a financial person who sees it that way and helps you think about how much money you need for the kind of lifestyle you want. But health and wellness is also going to impact the kind of life and lifestyle you want. It may impact, working. It may impact, social life, where you live. At some point or another, if we're so lucky to live longer, we will either be a caregiver or a care receiver. So it's helpful to think about that. There's a shift, as I mentioned before, often to more spirituality. It's sometimes now been thought of from the doing to more being, to our soul. Let yourself think about the impact of spirituality and religion in your life. What makes you come alive? What makes your soul sing? What are things maybe you had to put on the back burner because there was never time that maybe you have time now? What rituals are important to you? As you think about it, there aren't that many rituals sort of post age 50 other than maybe retirement and then death at the end. But there are opportunities for other rituals, for other little transitions that happen, like selling a home, moving, finishing a project, a big birthday. Opportunities for rituals. Also important to think about gratitude, forgiveness, self-acceptance, and again, how we want to be remembered. So my question to you is, how are you going to build connection, engagement, and purpose and meaning into your life, both individually and with other people? Important to think about as you are trying to create the best life for yourself at this stage of life. Pleasant activities. I'm sure you can think of many. I've tried to pull some pictures together from both Second Life and outside life. Nature, time to reflect and relax, Tai Chi, being part of Inspiration Island and all the various wonderful activities that are there. There's dancing, there's meditation, there's all kinds of discussion groups, learning about your strengths, using them in different ways. Again, engaging activities within Second Life, discussion groups, wisdom circle, strength programs, Tai Chi, music, listening to music. I've heard many wonderful stories of people who have brought some of their talents and skills and gifts from the outside world into Second Life. And sometimes the opposite way, when you gain the confidence of maybe doing and sharing your skills in Second Life, that you can bring it to the outside life too. And meaningful activities, tutoring, mentoring, reading, traveling. I know traveling's a little bit on the back burner during COVID, but people are starting to think a little bit more about traveling. And you can also travel virtually, through, museums, cooking classes around the world. And again, in Second Life, there are many, many meaningful activities. Being part of a conscious elder network or a program for social justice or political pursuits, whatever sort of is part of what's important to you and part of this legacy, which is, as we get older, there's a tendency to want to give back. So create your own individual vision, puzzle it out. What values and principles are important to you? What are your guiding beliefs? What life lessons have had the greatest impact on you? How have you made a difference in the lives of others? Sometimes we don't realize that even just smiling at people and talking to them really makes a difference. What's important for your children, grandchildren, or others to know about you? And how do you want to be remembered? What are 10 things that make you happy? What are 3 to 5 things you're really proud of and why? As you think about what's next, what are 5 losses? What are 5 things maybe you have to give up in order to make space for something new? So what are you going to miss? And what are the gains that you're going to have? What are you looking forward to? And again, a few questions to help you puzzle it out individually and with other people. What have you always wanted to do but haven't done? What are your biggest goals and dreams? If money wasn't an issue, what would you want to do alone or with your partner, spouse, or someone else? What new things do you want to learn? What do you most want to see or experience? What relationships, if any, do you want to repair? Where do you want to live? How can you live your life with a greater sense of purpose and meaning? And I really like this last question, influenced by George Kinder, a colleague who is a financial lifelong planner. If you went to the doctor and you were told you had only 24 to 48 hours to live, what would you regret not having said or done? I think this is a really profound question to let yourself think about. None of us know when our end is, so think about it now and then come back to whatever age you are now and begin to think about what's important to repair, to forgive, to change, to do. We have time now, so hopefully you don't reach the end with regrets. If you have somebody else in your life that you want to share this with, whether it be a partner, spouse, or relative or friend, create a shared vision. What do you want to do together or apart? Each of you, if you can puzzle it out, and I think it's helpful to write down what your individual vision is and be open and curious in the conversation. Take turns sharing, share something positive you've learned, ask questions, be curious about it, make a list of things you agree on and disagree on, and set a time to talk again. The beauty of relationships is you can come back to it. When you talk, have a blast. This was an acronym that we came up with when we wrote the book, The Couple's Retirement Puzzle. Just real briefly, blaming gets in the way. Use I statements. I'm thinking, I'm feeling. Try to avoid you statements like you don't or you do, or, and also try to avoid always and never. Listen. The L is listen without interrupting. None of us are born good listeners. And particularly if you've been with somebody for a long time, it's so easy to hear the first few words and just assume where it's going. And you're busy thinking about your brilliant response. You could be right, but you could be wrong. Sometimes it's really helpful to kind of check it out so you can repeat back what you heard. I heard you say this, not interpreting it, but just the words you heard. It's so nice to be heard and understood. And, maybe you heard it all, maybe part of it, maybe none of it, maybe all of it. And then you can share your thoughts, ask questions, whatever. The A is agree to disagree, don't make assumptions, and appreciate what you hear, even if you don't agree. I always say assumptions get people into hot water, so ask. It's much better to ask and not just assume. And S and T kind of go together. Set a safe space to talk. Could be in the car if it's not going to be a real heavy conversation. It can be at home. It can be out. It can be walking. Up to you. No right way. Also set a time limit on how long you're going to talk, particularly if you're not used to talking about difficult stuff. 10 minutes. You can say, I'd like to really talk about, such and such. Let's just, agree on about 10 minutes to talk because, we can come back to it. So talk without distractions and set a time limit. So keep in mind, have a blast. I like this concept of vital aging. It's a lifelong process of achieving potential, creating meaning, and enriching life through contributions and connections in community. And I would also add to this the notion of lifelong learning, or what's often now also called learning throughout life. Again, we can't control everything, so you want to try to control the parts you can. Live your life fully so you reach the end without regrets. Make friends with people of all ages and share your stories. Harvest your wisdom, live your legacy. We're not wise just because we live a certain number of years, but we're wise if we let ourselves reflect and learn from the ups and downs and recognize the perspective we have and the wisdom that we have, and allow yourself to harvest it. Reflect, set timelines. It's interesting to look back from the year you were born and, project out to age 100. Think about the different decades in your life. What are the things that impacted and influenced you? Who are the people? What are some things that maybe you had to push under into, either conscious or unconscious because there never was time for? Let yourself think about, live your legacy now, harvest your wisdom. Forgive yourself and others, be mindful, be grateful. Forgiving is not forgetting, but it is important to recognize none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. Design versus default. You don't need to internalize the ageism unless you want. It's an opportunity to grow, learn, evolve, and design this next stage of life to the best of your ability. Be conscious, be intentional. And I like to end with this poem that's a favorite of mine. It's kind of Living the Questions by Rilke, who's a German poet. Just close your eyes for a minute and just let yourself kind of take this in and listen. Be patient toward all that is unresolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms or books that are written in a foreign tongue. The point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live your way some distant day into the answers. Thank you. Thank you for being here and listening to me. And I just briefly want to tell you, I have a monthly free program open to professionals and the public on the fourth Tuesday of each month except December at 12 noon Eastern time, where I interview experts about various aspects of aging and living your best life. Sign up is always the week before at revolutionizeyourretirement.com or revolutionizeretirement.com. You can use either one. And if you sign up and can't be there live, you get a recording link after the call. These are books that I either have been co-author or have written chapters for. The They're on my website. There's also a resource list on my website, which I'm currently updating. There's some wonderful books in the field about positive, healthy aging and lifelong learning. So I recommend, that there are a lot of wonderful books out there. And again, it's been lovely to be here. And I do look forward to having questions and answers from you.